Thank you for auditing the Always Positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's recording in his kitchen. There's some construction going on. So I'm going to be reviewing the new album by Ransom and Craven, Director's Cut 4. It's not actually new, but they didn't release it on Tidal, so I only saw it was released on Instagram like this week. I don't really follow stuff carefully enough. Hey, put everything on Tidal. That way I'll see it. But I'm happy to see it. I mean, if you don't know, Craven is, if not my favorite active producer, one of my favorite active producers. The whole thing is just so well made. The samples are so well chosen. I think he is the best at doing that trick of having a loop that sort of starts at the end of a line and then starts up with another bit to create a sort of weird rhythm that you don't expect. He digs really deep in the crates, finds all sorts of interesting stuff. And then, of course, Ransom, who, if he's not the most underrated rapper, he's very close to it, even though he's pretty highly rated by people who know him. I will say that this is something of a palate cleanser, so I spent a long time reviewing that Lil Uzi Vert album. And I personally think that the strength of rap music is in the strength of its mainstream and its alternatives, so, it's very different. Lil Uzi Vert is what I call a no bars required rapper. You don't need bars to enjoy Lil Uzi Vert. As a matter of fact, if there are bars, they kind of take away from the vibe or whatever it is that these young kids like these days. But this was nice to spend a little bit of time with somebody who not only cares about writing bars, but just does it in such a great way where it's not all punchlines, it's not no punchlines, it's not even that every line is intricately constructed with rich rhymes, not rich rhymes. It's just ridiculously solid. And I think that's part of his persona. I talked about that with my last review. He has a sort of workman persona. He gets in the booth, and he to a certain extent it seems as though he sees himself as like a working class rapper. Just like, I am going to make this house. I'm going to work construction, and I'm going to knock together a house, and it's going to be the most beautifully constructed house you've ever seen. But that's sort of what I'm doing, and we'll talk about that a little bit further as we get into the album. There is a rather interesting element to this album which made me almost not review it. That is that I am politically opposed to this album. So he makes a few points which I do not agree with. I think this, along with Killer Mike, it's pretty interesting. We appear to have a real rise, and I would even say, some lines off the most recent Makami album, a real rise of black conservative rap music. And I'm not saying black conservative. I mean the movement of black conservatism, which is much better described by a YouTuber named FD Signifier, who is much more intimately aware of this than I am. I suggest you watch his work. That's where most of what I know comes from. But it's a different kind of conservatism than white conservatism. Much less dangerous, much less noxious, much less forgivable. But still, it is a very interesting album in that way. So I'm going to engage with that in this review. Okay, I'm not going to decry it and say this bad. I'm not going to say this good, actually. I'm going to sort of try to engage with it and see what is being said. Because if you can't engage with a great artist making a point you don't agree with, then you don't really... I don't think you have very strong convictions, It's easy to hear, I don't know, who's that guy? Tom McDonald make his weird conservative rap and sort of laugh at him. But he's not a great artist. Ransom is a great artist. So let's engage with those ideas. I think it'll start with the stamp. So click above the world to hear the song Freedom, which I think is the real center point of this album. This is the real anchor. This is the best point of convergence between sort of my world philosophy as it interacts with the world philosophy that is presented on this album. And just Craven, it's just when he is his mid is other people's high, and his high is just unreal. Now this has this beautiful sample. One thing that Ransom really knows how to do is work with Craven. He hears the loops, he makes the loops, he integrates the samples into his rhyme schemes, into his philosophy. It's really outstanding. But So we have this like, I'm free, doo-doo-doo-doo. Like you can't place it. Is this a 60s sample? Is this a 70s sample? I don't know where this is from. But then the guest appearance is someone named Kid Shadrock, who's doing basically a sort of reggae toaster thing over the whole piece. And it is such an unexpected integration of reggae into the soul sample that everyone is playing with the sample at the same time. Just, I'm free. It's beautiful. It's even better than the way I just sang it. It is absolutely the best of Nicholas Craven right here. One of his best beats. He even adds little things on top of it, kind of little keyboards on top of it. And then we get to the lyrics. And the lyrics is about the question, what is freedom? You know, like, what is freedom? I mean, the whole album, every single track is named after a movie. I don't know if there's a movie called Freedom. I assume there is. But, you know, what is freedom? And I think that's what this album asks. I think this album asks it in a provocative way, or in a way that provokes me. Your standard issue, white liberal. You know, what is freedom in society? Freedom in society as a man, as a black person, as a black man, as a middle-aged man, as a performer, as a black performer, as a male performer in America in 2023, and most importantly, as a human being. That's all. That's all Ransom is trying to describe in the song, at least as far as I see it. So we have this stupid good drum beat. I mean, beat, sorry, that I'm afraid of the contractors walking into the house anytime. If I seem nervous, that's why. I'll take a break. I'll breathe a little. And get my mug. It's my only merch. Check it out. If you want me to leave a heart on your comment, make sure you leave a comment that has the letters AVAA. Awesome video as always. And I will always leave a heart. Smash like bucket, subscribe. I'm just so happy to be talking about underground rap again. I feel like it's been forever. So I'm going to go through some of these lines, some of these verses, some of this verse by Ransom, because it is him at his best as well. Don't gotta speak to have a powerful voice. It's only right that a man demand his respect and you don't allow a choice. So that's in this concept of the freedom to not speak. And I think that even goes into a lot of what Kendrick Lamar has been talking about in Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Just in general, this sort of idea that we always have to speak, we always have to have an opinion, and it is a man's right, which is how he phrases it. I think it's a human right to not to have to speak. They'll call you wet when all the flowers are moist, so why try to be brave? Because when you stumble, watch the cowards rejoice. You don't try nothing, you'll never be nothing. How they see your vision when you ain't never seen nothing. Beautiful. There's a whole bit of this album that seems to be really directed at fake gangster rappers, or just how disappointing gangster rappers can be, just how fake their version. It's funny because in some ways this album is, and we'll talk about it, I'll use the P word, problematic in its depiction of masculinity and questions of men's issues, but at the same time it does a very good job of really attacking more fundamental flaws in how masculinity is presented and perceived in mainstream rap music, which we'll talk about later. I've seen you just acting out a script. I see another scene coming. I've seen it all before. That's why these ends rerunning. Beautiful. Just my favorite line on the whole album. You're just acting out a script. I see another scene coming. How many times in my life do I talk to people, do I see people, and I know they're just living their life like it's a movie. Like they're just some character in some movie. They're just so predictable. I see another scene coming. It's beautiful. Who the F's to blame when you break out on them? When you break out of the shackles, then you buy another chain. I'm guilty of the same. I did it to look like a star. So this is in some ways continuing, speaking of interesting voices in black conservatism, a lot of Kanye's early work where he talks a lot about the ambiguity of having chains and chains and chains and chains. But I like here just, I did it to look like a star. He doesn't say I did it because I am a star. I did it to look like I'm a star. Again, part of what makes Ransom's perspective so interesting is he's aware that he is not a multimillionaire rap star. Maybe he's a multimillionaire, and he's a rap star in the way that he is known by a lot of people, but not like a rap star. He's not Lil Uzi Vert. He's not, a big rap star. He's not Drake, right? but still, he did it to look like a star. So a little bit of self-awareness here, which is quite nice. Who cares if you truly are free as long as you look like you are? You ain't got no freedom if you get a bad comment and you believe them. They said your music was trash, now the clip is deleted. So here he's moving from a sort of societal question of the slavery of consumerism, okay? Which, hey, if you disagree with Ransom on a lot of his views on people such as Kyrie Irving and Kevin Samuels, as we'll be talking about soon, you can at least appreciate this anti-consumerist or this cogent approach to the slavery in consumerism. Which, again, I think this fits quite nicely with a song like New Slaves. Speaking of Ye, you ain't really free if you spend $10,000 at Saint Laurent. Now, men sell clothes. You want some free-ish. Now, you say you're free when you spend no time with what you believe in. Like, this is great. How do you say you're free when you spend no time on what you believe in? Again, really, what is freedom? That's what I call a deep end. You criticize me when you got to pretend. I sought you with all the power of 3 men. That's why they say I'm troublesome. You can't say you free if you Democrat or Republican. Okay. So again, we're starting to see a little bit of a clear sort of script of this kind of ideology. A sort of like this is a common refrain that we heard from Kanye as well, and from other entertainers, in particular, sort of Black American entertainers who are wary of the dogma of having to vote Democratic, which is true. Like that's garbage, right? What really has the Democratic Party done for people who don't look like me? In the words of Johnny Knoxville, not much, okay? Like realistically, have they done more than nothing? Sure. Have they done less intentionally hurtful things? Maybe. Okay, but this is still the party of Clinton. Okay, so I think this dialogue is actually important. I think it's an important dialogue, and I think it's true. You know, how can you be free if you identify with a group? You can't say you're free if you never owned, or if you never owned your publishing. You can't say you're free if you're 45 and still hustling. Hey, what if you're 45 and you're still doing YouTube videos? Could never say you're free if religion is what you trusted in. Okay? So, look at him. He's just going through. He's just bam, bam, bam. Just like, hey, buying stuff? You're not free. Hey, voting? You're not free. Hey, religion? You're not free. This is like radical. This is a radical song. And it goes to the end. It doesn't stop halfway. It doesn't get convenient. He doesn't do it in such a way where he makes himself look cool and everyone else look lame. He is accusing himself of not being free at the same time. No nourishment, my flow flourishing, you F's let it burn. So I had to usher in some untainted lyrics from a G. I'm screaming. And then it leads right into that sample. I don't always get goosebumps, but sometimes I do. And I just got goosebumps for when he says I'm screaming, and then that sample, I'm free. I think I figured out what the sample is, but I don't sample snitch. I have sample snitched in the past. I didn't know it was a thing. I'm not going to do it now. Nicholas Craven, he cannot be stopped. And then a whole verse with the reggae. Speaking of Kanye, one of my favorite things Kanye does is almost every album he has at least one song where someone does some reggae stuff over it. And it's just this great, awesome combination of these genres and styles. And there you have it, right? That is a perfect distillation of this album, of Ransom's talent, of Nicholas Craven's talent. Let's go through the rest of the album a little bit quicker and at times slower. Rise of the Machines. Is that the name of the third Terminator movie with the lady? I don't know. Starts off with a kind of walkie-talkie post-apocalyptic discussion, which comes in and out. Oh, by the way, I want to give a shout out to Trill Tev. If you don't watch Trill Tev's stuff, he does a lot of really great stuff on this underground rap music, especially with reactions. So I don't do reactions because you can't monetize them, and I'm not interesting when I listen to music. I don't think I am, at least. But his... If we ever do the same thing, I think the two of our videos together kind of work well as a companion piece. So check out Trill Tev if you haven't already. But sort of starts off with this post-apocalyptic theme, which thankfully drops off. I could do without it entirely, but it's okay. You know, it's kind of like an EP. Why not have a theme? almost like so every beat is cinematic. He knows how to make things sound cinematic. This one almost reminds me of like an old Western, like a Sergio Leone Western. The drums are basically just a bongo. A great, one of my favorite, I would love to have a compilation. If you have too much time out there, please do this. A compilation of every time a rapper has talked about how they're in the top 5, but they're actually number 1. You know, there's all different ways of saying it. I'm top 3, but not number 3 or number 2 either. I'm probably closer to that guy who spit either. I don't know. I think Ransom's better than Nas. Okay, maybe, I don't know. I end up trolling Nas fans by mistake. That was a little bit on purpose. I mean, Nas has the track record, but you know, I would rather listen to Ransom than Nas. But I can respect objectively Nas has done more, been more influential, all that stuff. Why do I always troll Nas fans? What's wrong with me? Damn it! Now you're never going to say AVAA. You're going to say SVAA for sucky video as always. I'll give you a heart for that too. What I like here is he talks about the mainstream and the alternatives. It says you're up Schitt's Creek, but they call it mainstream. Beautiful imagery, right? Like it's a tired metaphor, you know, Schitt's Creek and the mainstream, but putting them together is brilliant. Schitt's Creek and they call it metaphors. And then the introduction of a sort of political narrative about like why do you not clap for Candace Owens, but you do clap for Oprah. The reason you don't clap for Candace Owens is that she's a grifter. Just so you know. So she doesn't believe the things that she says, and she says them specifically to promote white supremacy. So that's we'll talk about the other folks soon. I don't think that's the same with the other people I'm going to be talking about, but Candace Owens, Jesus Christ. But her, she's still one of my favorite things that FT Signify ever said that pissed off everyone is he said he would rather talk about racism with Candace Owens than a well-meaning white liberal, which to me is one of the best things he's ever said. He got a lot of crap for it, but I also think it's very important for white liberals like myself to understand that that's true. That even the most odious conservative whatever person has a shared experience, which I could never even come close to understanding with a million years of empathy. Could I ever actually have that lived experience? Anyways, just interesting little like the way it's laced in here. Another great line, no bunk beds in the graveyard. Just, how does he come up with these things? He has so many great rhymes. Cool kind of crackling vinyl at the end, and then there's like a weird kid singing. And I don't know. Every time I see Craven, I think Wes Craven. I think Nightmare on Elm Street. So I think I hear at the end I hear the kids doing hopscotch. Next up is War Dogs with Chez Noir. How can your mental change if it's never challenged? That's part of the reason why I wanted to review this album, even though I disagree with a lot of it. I was looking up to Phil Drummond as my father figure, dreamt of Lisa Bonet and sleeping with Carlton's sister. This is why I love television, because it doesn't matter, like Phil Drummond from Different Strokes, Lisa Bonet from Cosby Show, Carlton's sister from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But then the reality is he ends up having these interactions with fiends and all that. Chez Noir is on here. I always love having Chez Noir. I love her style. I love her flow, or at times sort of almost anti-flow. And I'm happy every time she is on a track. I'm happy every time that she releases anything. Your family, and also just every once in a while she throws out one of those killer lines, which Triltev, I watched his reaction and the way he reacted. Your family won't get your body back unless I sell it to them. That's one of those, but anyways, again, check out the Triltev video. Okay, now is the time of the video where we talk about They Live, which, great pitched up sample, awesome, again, but here's the question of truth from the heart. Okay, so the first verse is all from the perspective of Kyrie Irving. Okay, so if you don't know, he is a very talented basketball player, all right, who holds a lot of stupid and wrong thoughts and some dangerous thoughts. Okay, so the world is round, it's not flat. Period. Okay? Vaccinations help end pandemics. The vaccine was good. It saved millions of lives. Everybody who didn't get vaccinated was running the risk of killing people. It's not a debate. It's not a debate. Okay, do my research. Hey, you're wrong. You're just wrong. It's cool, man. I'm wrong about some stuff sometimes too. Okay? It's just wrong. All right? So, in this verse, he tells Kyrie's story as a player, and then goes into this and sort of defends his decision to make this decision as it's his body. It's true, it's his body. It's not the only thing that people do that hurts other people. But if you didn't get vaccinated, it does actually mean that you are putting other people's lives in danger. You are literally killing other people's grandparents. Now, maybe that doesn't matter to you. Maybe you don't believe it. Maybe you've been fooled. It's okay to be fooled. It's okay to be fooled. I personally don't think that Kyrie Irving was the most dangerous anti-vaxxer. I don't think he was the top 1,000 anti-vaxxers who causes problems. I think he was one of the least important anti-vaxxers. But he got most of the heat. Why? And it's hinted at in the song because he's a black celebrity. And if there's one thing that we have learned over the past couple of years is that black celebrities are treated way worse, are held to a much harsher standard, and that the white supremacist society in which we live in which we all participate in, no matter what our color is, when a black person makes a mistake, when a black celebrity does something, the amount of joy that us as a culture and society takes in tearing that person down is disgusting and is worse than whatever the hell the thing is that person did. So, but still, defending Kyrie Irving for his anti-Semitism, but what's interesting is that it goes into this whole point that it's a question of origins. And this is why it's important. Because, if somebody comes from a culture which has been lied to so consistently about its origins and has been lied to and treated very poorly by the medical system, then we need to understand and factor that in when we consider the fact that they don't trust the medical system and that they don't understand their origins. Okay? My great-great-great-great-grandfather took Kyrie Irving's great-great-great-great-grandfather, threw him on a boat, brought him here, whipped him, and told him to forget where he came from. Okay? That's just what happened. I don't want it to be true, but it's true. Okay? My great-great-great-uncle, whatever, tested syphilis medicine. Okay? I don't know if that's true, but it might as well be. So anyways, it's a call for empathy. I don't think it is a strong endorsement. I don't think it's a whole-throated endorsement of Kyrie Irving and everything he said and did. But I think it's necessary to have this dialogue. Why is the lighting so bad? I'm going to move. Maybe this lighting's better if I do this. Is that better? I don't think it is a complete endorsement, but it's definitely asking questions. It is asking questions that make me uncomfortable, and if I'm being made uncomfortable, at least I'm thinking. So then you're like, okay, well, I guess he's done there. And there's a full break, total beat change, and a little bit return to the, is there anybody out there? And then we get to this kind of sultry sample, beautifully pitched up, just beautiful Nicholas Craven thing. And then now here we are about the truth teller of Kevin Samuels. Okay, so if you don't know Kevin Samuels is a very interesting human being who is a part of what they call the manosphere, in particular the black manosphere. Do yourself a favor, look up the videos by FD Signifier on the Black Manosphere. In particular, his video on Kevin Samuels called Kevin Samuels Died. Kevin Samuels died tragically very recently. And it's interesting because there's a part of what Kevin Samuels did that was really, I think, good and helpful. It was really emphasizing that there's way too much glamorization of the hyper-rich and that women are taught to some women are taught to expect a standard from a man which is unattainable, and that we should essentially aspire to live lives of quiet dignity and meaning with people who are gainfully employed. And that men who make $80,000 a year, $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year are men. That Meek Mill is not the only man to aspire to be with, right? So like in theory, this is actually a very useful thing because our society is all broken. It's all screwed up. It's all messed up. Everyone wants to be with Jake Paul and Lil Uzi Vert. It's like, no, man, you want to be with a you do want to be with a contractor. Like that is a better life to live. But what ended up happening was it became this sort of thing where he became most famous for basically just like telling it like unattractive women that they're ugly and that they're not as pretty as they think they are. And ended up forwarding a lot of ugly misogyny and something else called misogynoir, which I have no ability to talk about, but you should look up. It's quite interesting. So he's a very complicated figure, and he is not as bad and evil as simplistic people say he is, and he is not as fascinating and a truth teller as I think this is saying, but he's a very interesting character. And what I like about the way Ransom talks about it is he's really focusing on the positive aspect of it, which is essentially somebody showing up and trying to make a strong case that the black working class needs to be appreciated by members of the black working class. Like that's a way to sort of break down everything into its simplest component. And like that's true because the working class is getting the shaft everywhere in this country. White, black, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like we need more people saying, hey, we need to value people who work for a living. Now it gets all mixed up with this question of what is a man, and it can end up devolving into some very regressive views on men's roles and women's roles, which fundamentally hurt men and fundamentally hurt women, right? But it's all put in this context in this song, and it's a great song. It's great. It's very well rhymed. It's very well thought out. It's a very convincing argument. Is that, it's this question of the attack of the family. And he says it as the attack of the black family. I do understand that it's an attack on black families in specific, but also just families in general. This love of wealth and fame has a very pernicious effect on our entire society. This is an EP, man. God damn it, Ransom. Can't you just make an album where you say some cool shit about what a good rapper you are, and then Craven throws on some cool shit that shows what a great producer he is, and then I could just do a 10-minute video? Oh no, you gotta make me seriously consider the value of somebody who I wrote off as just a huckster, because this is what art can do. It's great. Next song is Minority Report. I love the sort of string loop here. Very strong. In general, I prefer like loops with strings less, but this is a really good one. You could have been a great man. No, I could have been a great man, but look who stood in the way of that. So, ends who dream when it's only safe to nap. So this is continuing the previous song, and this is sort of his statement on black masculinity, that we need that one needs to take personal responsibility and stop dreaming. And personally, I'm all in favor of that. If I was an influencer, like one of my main things would be stop dreaming. Just enough. Your dreams aren't special. Don't follow your dream at all costs. Don't. Like, it's cool. Like, life is way more interesting than either achieving your dream or dying. Like, it really is. So, this is a really nice follow-up because I think it shows his perspective on this. It shows somebody who has, I think, taken the most interesting and most important parts that can be taken from the previous song, in particular from the teachings or the ideas of Kevin Samuels, and putting them in the most sort of positive and cogent light, while adding in lines like "fought for crumbs when they don't give you a slice." That's the whole thing, and this is a thing which, feel free to tell me in the comments how annoying it is when white liberals talk about this stuff. I know it's annoying. I don't know anything, right? All I know is what I observe, right? I don't have any lived experience. I can't possibly know. So feel free to tell me all the stuff I don't know. Feel free to tell me that I'm wrong. Feel free to tell me all that stuff. I totally get it. Please tell me how I'm wrong. Okay? Talib Kweli's verse is good, but gets totally outshone by Raina. I'd never heard of Raina. It's a beautiful verse about being a black woman in America. They took my lips, hips, and kids, but still I ain't scared. So it's great having her on there because we actually have a voice. If Kevin Samuels can credibly be accused of being misogynoir, here Ransom has multiple voices, multiple black female voices on his album saying what they want to say. So it's very well counterbalanced. I love the chorus from Ransom here. It's just a great rap chorus. We smile when you say you hit it because we know you missed it. Awesome. Last of Us, featuring Black Chakra, has more percussive samples and some horns. Never needed a handout, give me a hand up. I love this division because I never needed a handout is like the thing that all conservatives want the African American community to say because they're never going to give them anything. They're only going to take and take and take and take and take. Affirmative action as an example. But what I love here is she's saying, I don't need a handout, but give me a hand up. So he is asking for assistance. And maybe this is the distinction that needs to be made, right? That maybe people, if they don't need a hand out, maybe they just need a hand up. They need help. They need to stop being kicked in the teeth. Okay, the construction workers are here, but I'm just going to keep going. Maybe you start off in a condo, but you can end up like Arenthal in the Bronco. Just a great line. Across 110th Street, this is that way that Craven can get his collaborators to interact with the samples, or they do it, under the street lights, and the whole thing's about the street lights, all about like his brother not making it to graduation, stuck in court, just very visceral, true stuff. Blood doesn't make us family, it only makes us related, and I hate it. I don't understand this line, but I love it because I personally am not a big fan of people's obsession with blood. Then we get Freedom, the Stamp, Manchurian Candidate, Pitched Up, Volksdrum. He talks about being cold, just really, really clever. Patriot Games, you lost at half. Now they're saying subpar sales, they're trying to rob your craft. So like Patriot Games, you lost at the half. That's like the Patriots when they were losing at the half in the game against the Falcons in the Super Bowl. They're saying subpar sales, they're trying to rob your craft. That's like a homonym with Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots. He's just awesome. This is here. It's like let me just remind you, just in case you forgot from the previous song, what a strong rapper I am. Lots of interesting Game of Thrones references on here. Enemy of the State, really cool disco strings, and then this whole like awkward archer is like the theme that he focuses on, and this is why he's such a great MC. Like what a cool concept to start with. Awkward archer. Like how do you branch out from that? I've seen most of the movies referenced here. I did see the movie Enemy of the State. I saw it on the Champs-Élysées in Paris. I was at a movie theater, and I was sitting in the middle, and right in the middle of the movie, Gene Hackman, Will Smith, good movie. 2 rows ahead of me, a woman put her head on her date's lap, but he had his zipper open and his penis out, and so they did that particular sex act, and I was pretty scandalized right there in the middle of the theater when I was just 2 rows away, and about 5 minutes later, she pops up again, and then she just starts eating popcorn. And anyways, I still can't see Gene Hackman without getting a little bit aroused. Very funny moment. A couple years later, I became friends with a guy who'd never been to a movie theater ever in his entire life. He was some Pentecostal something or other. And he was like, I was like, why not? It's like, well, the church tells us that bad things happen in movie theaters. And I was like, that's not, there is Enemy of the State. Crooked Eye has a great guest appearance on here, just perfect. Final track, Dark Waters, great sample. I guess some things just weren't meant to be as in the sample, and then that's the theme of the track, and then it's going back to a lot of these ideas, a lot of these interesting ideas about like what is life supposed to be, and sometimes you just have to accept that things aren't how they're supposed to be. I love here how, okay, so he talks a little bit about being canceled, and that's my main problem. Like, just, I don't think anyone should ever talk about being canceled. It's boring. It's boring and it's defensive. But I do love how this is what I was talking about, how he goes on to the actual questions of masculinity, and he talks about how somebody changes their name to Lil to make it as a rap star. And, like, this is true, right? Like, there is John Singleton's movie, Baby Boy. Speaking of amazing work by F.D. Signifier, his breakdown of the movie Baby Boy was one of the best pieces of movie criticism on YouTube. But the movie Baby Boy is a lot about the way that black men in America infantilize themselves and are infantilized, right? This is that crisis of masculinity. This because, it's a part of the subjugation. So, like, the fact that we have so many rappers named Lil who intentionally diminish, diminutivize, intentionally present themselves as small, emphasize their smallness. It makes sense, It's easy for me to say, I don't agree with all this black masculinity stuff, when I don't know what that's like. I don't know what that's like at all. I don't know what it's like where if I am too big, then people are terrified of me. So what the hell do I know? This is why it's important to engage with this stuff, even if you disagree with it. Sadly, the thing I disagree with the most is there's some kind of line at the end about, like, leave the youngins pure, and this seems to be like a sort of anti-trans discussion in schools and stuff, and it's like, it's okay. I mean, whatever. We disagree on that. I don't think that's a defensible position, because that's just fake. Like, no one is trying. Like, this stuff isn't really happening. That's just conservative talking points that there's some kind of grooming and all that stuff. And young people are not going to be kept pure. They're just not. They're just they never were. They never were pure ever in life. Were you pure? When you were 8 years old, were you pure? I was not pure. I didn't have porn, and I didn't know what a trans person was, but I was not pure. I was vile as hell. I had older brothers. I had friends down the street. Come on, man. There's no purity in children. That's a lie. Anyways, we need to teach children. We need to contextualize complicated things. We maybe need to make a society where we're not teaching them they have to learn how to deal with somebody trying to shoot them in the brain during second period. Maybe that's the kind of purity we should focus on. But anyways, so there's my review of Ransom and Nicholas Craven's Director's Cut 4. Two of the best people out there in the game, making a very provocative, at least to me, album, which I enjoy very much. And until next time, and I thank you for dealing with the construction work. There's the camera.